Welcome to the Black Box of Media, brought to you by Ultimate Edge Communications. I'm your host, Aleisha McCall, and this is episode 9. This podcast lifts the lid on the hidden strategies behind high-performance media advertising. If you've ever wondered why some campaigns drive incredible results and others fall flat, this is where we break it all down. In each episode, I sit down with marketing experts, media buyers, and brand leaders to uncover the tactics, insights, and real-world case studies that drive real impact. No fluff, no jargon, just actionable advice to help you cut through the noise and make media work harder for your business. So if you're a CMO, a marketing manager, or a business owner who's looking for an edge, this is your backstage pass to results-driven media. So let's unlock the black box together and change the way you think about media advertising. Today, we are joined by a results-driven marketer and media leader who knows how to build lasting brand impact. Shaun Briggs, Director of Marketing and Planning, ANZ at Specsavers. Shaun is responsible for overseeing the marketing activity across Australia and New Zealand, from the iconic and enduring Should Have Gone to Specsavers campaigns across the hard retail offers. In his remit is the execution of media, creative and PR. He has over 25 years experience in marketing and media advertising. Now, as I said, you've probably heard this iconic Should Have Gone to Specsavers. It's been in the market for over 20 years, which I found mind-blowing. I didn't realize it had been in market so long. But here's the kicker. It's still delivering results. So in a world where marketers often feel pressured to reinvent the wheel every year, to come up with a new campaign, the Specsavers approach shows the magic of staying true to the course when it works. So we're diving deep into creative consistency, brand measurement, full funnel thinking, and the realities of omni-channel decision-making in 2025. So whether you're a CMO, a marketing manager, or a business owner, this is a brilliant roadmap to help you get through those nitty-gritty elements of the marketing plan and just to have a fantastic overview of this brilliant Should Have Gone to Specsavers campaign. So let's get into it. Shaun, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. That's an excellent intro. A lot to cover, so I hope we've got the right amount of time. But yeah, very happy to be here.
Unreal. We will do our best. I've been very excited about this episode, Shaun. It still gets me that I still giggle to myself when I see this, Should Have Gone to Specsavers campaign. And I love that, whenever I bring it up in a session or whatever it might be, I get that same reciprocal smile from somebody sitting across the table. So I think, listeners today are going to really enjoy hearing your perspective of what this journey's been like. And of course, then not just the campaign, but, how that all kind of rolls out through the full funnel marketing matrix as well. So lots of questions to cover, Shaun. I'm super pumped to get into this, and I'm going to dive straight in because I want to make sure that we make the most of our time together. So if we just start with this this piece around, obviously you've led, one of the most consistent and memorable brand campaigns in market. So what's the secret to its longevity? What's the secret to its longevity? And two, how do you keep it fresh?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, you see a should have probably every now and then, and you get a laugh. That's great. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. We probably see them either from ourselves or ideas that get pitched to us. At least every week we're seeing some new sort of something should have related, and it hasn't lost any of that magic or any of that sparkle or really just any of that relevance. And I think that's probably the key to the longevity, is that relevance. Like, the insight is rooted in something that is just 100% true. And I reckon that has to be the secret to it, is just like, if you can't see properly or you can't hear properly, you will mishear things in a potentially humorous way, or you'll not see things leading to potentially humorous outcomes. They're obviously the scenarios that we use. So I reckon the longevity is just human truth, absolutely unequivocal. Doesn't matter who you are, how old you are. If you've got eyes or ears, there's a good chance you've experienced a should have moment for yourself. So I think that is for sure how the longevity works, and almost like the yin and the yang to that. Then how do you keep it fresh? Well, because that is a truth, whether it was 5,000 years ago or 5,000, probably shouldn't say 5,000 years in the future, who knows what's going to happen, but 5 minutes into the future when I'm fairly confident I know what's going to happen, it's not going to be untrue, and it hasn't been untrue. So you can play with that in the context that you're in, or you can completely go outside of it. And, when I think about this, I think to one of the very early ones, which is Sheepdog, which if you haven't seen it, just go onto YouTube or wherever and look for it. And it's sort of set, it's done in black and white, and
Yep.
it's set a while ago, and it's with a shepherd who just mistakes his dog for a sheep and shears it. Like, it's like there's nothing particularly anything about it other than it's
Crazy
just
about it. Yep.
beautifully shot, really well done, and it works today, easily 20 years later as it did in the past. And then we have others that live completely in the moment, and they're not always video either. And so if you remember when I think they announced La La Land as an Oscar winner when it was actually Moonlight. And so
Yes.
we
Yep.
just played with that with an envelope, and, they pull it out of the envelope, it's got a little card. And we just did this ever so slightly blurry version and put that out into socials super quickly. And that just took off because it was it was a
That's
should have. So
brilliant. That's a Richard Branson
enduring.
strategy right there, right? It's
Yeah,
like, you find the media moment, you tap into it, you find a way to integrate the brand,
just
and
the
now
way
you've
you
got
go.
all of this, PR leverage that you could have never imagined 2 days ago, 24 hours ago.
You've just got to be like at the
Yeah.
start line ready to go. That's how you can also plan for it, right? You don't have to just sit there waiting for a moment to happen. Another one we did was, these feel a little bit long in the tooth, which is annoying. But when Game of Thrones was massive, maybe it still is, I'm not sure, but when it was absolutely massive, and they had that coffee cup that was left on set, and it ended up in the final cut and went to air with like a takeaway coffee cup in Westeros, which I'm not sure Starbucks existed in Westeros, but anyway.
Go figure. We'll make it work for the context.
We'll make it work. And so we played with that one as well. So I think you've kind of got to be, for us, for should have, you've got to be on your toes and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that sits on, the team, that we've just got to be quick to say yes or quick to say no.
And looking for those opportunities, right?
Yeah,
to go, okay, how can this relate in? And because it's to your point, it's such a broad, everyday concept. Like, we all go through those moments in our day, like, should have done this, making those sort of mini mistakes. And I think when that's the kind of the humility aspect that you guys tap into so nicely, it's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. So I just think it's just
total sense. Yeah.
Brilliant campaign and brilliantly executed. So when you think about the, let's just say, and we'll change tunes a little bit here. When brand metrics are still strong, but the creative feels old. So the numbers are telling you things are going well. Creators feeling old, especially to the team who's looking at it every day. How do you decide whether to stick or twist?
So because this is a podcast, right? I'm shaking my head at you. If the creative feels old to the team, I understand. It's kind of like a bit of bad luck.
Like a suck it up, like the numbers are there, or
it's difficult. It's like, if you go to the gym or you go for a run or whatever, and you're really sore at the end of it and you're tired, you get, well, that's good sore, so that's fine. That's making you better. And I think this is good board. Like, it's working, and I think you've absolutely got to stay focused on the metrics. There will be nothing easier than to convince ourselves, oh yeah, we need to make a new should have, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. When the numbers, whether they are, I probably wouldn't look at top of mind for this, but if I'm looking at mid and bottom funnel metrics and it's all still working, why would I take money that could be going into further amplification, further reach, further context, further whatever, and put it into more creative development if the creative I've got's already working, unless I'm just adding to it and it's going to come into the mix, and then that's okay. There's definitely a benefit in keeping things fresh, but I don't think you almost go, we certainly wouldn't sit here and go, right, every 6 months we're going to do something new. We'll go, we might do something new every 6 months, or we might think that we might need to do something new every 6 months.
Or add in a twist or whatever it might be, right? But
that's we might not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's been sort of this overarching pressure on marketers to think that they have to reinvent the wheel every campaign period or every year, or we've got to bring out something fresh, or there's just a cycle of, we're into our new campaign, and so therefore there's a thought, right, we're into our new creative. So what would you say to some of those marketers out there that actually have some, great assets, some campaigns that have worked really effectively? And I'm going to ask this in two parts. One, because of just, hey, well, when can they sort of know, actually, this has got more in it. This is something that we can continue with. And then two, and maybe you can talk a little bit to this as well, the leverage that you can get from these existing assets. Like, the biggest challenge that I see marketers having right now is just like, right, we've got to do a campaign, but now we've got to generate all of these assets, and we just can't get things to market quick enough. So deadlines lapse, campaigns sometimes are half missed. It's like, oh, well, at least we got there. But that's not really the the process that drives the result in the business. And I do think that's part of where you guys have had a lot of that success as well, is that forward planning. So I know there's a little bit in that, Shaun, but if you can
Yes,
just sorry
solid,
to put you on the spot here.
solid question.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, we make the exact same, mistakes and missteps occasionally ourselves, or regularly ourselves as well, where you do go and do that stuff. I think
Mm-hmm.
probably need to think about it in a couple of different bits for us. In the should have world, at the absolute top of the funnel, where we're just trying to create mental availability, and we're trying to stay likable, and we're trying to stay top of mind, and we're trying to be the first brand thought of when someone has they mishear something, or they don't see something properly. That there is somewhere where we don't really need to reinvent the wheel ever, because the idea is should have, and then we've got so many executions just revolving around that, whether it is sheepdog, like, okay, fine, you've got to deal with usage and all that stuff. But let's just go magic world. Usage is available forever in perpetuity in every channel, right?
Tick.
I've got hundreds of assets that I could just go and use. So I don't really need to reinvent that wheel, because the truth underneath it, people can't see properly, people can't hear properly, make silly little mistakes, and we can have a bit of a laugh, not at their expense.
Of
That's
course.
not going away. But then let's go down the other end and let's say, right, well, we actually need to drive a commercial return this month. Whatever, it doesn't matter this month, this period.
Quarter, yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever.
Yep. Yep.
We've got to go and run something to activate all that, consideration that we've got, and all that awareness that we've
Yep.
got. We've got to go and do things that if someone sat there knowing that they should get their eyes tested, or knowing that they should go and have their hearing tested but haven't done it,
Uh-huh.
we need to be able to activate those into market. That is somewhere where we're more prone to going and having that campaign by campaign thinking. But even then, we are currently, I think, getting better at going back to the last time we ran this, or the last time we had this similar commercial imperative, whether it was we need more site test volume in our stores, or we need the volume that's coming in to convert better. What did we do last time? And do we need to completely reinvent, whatever that sort of semi take on should have was that we activate with, or can we actually just refresh it? And by refresh it, terms and conditions, end dates, and it's a really functional stuff. Because you're absolutely right. The amount of assets that you've got to produce is just, it can be absolutely mind boggling. Like,
And overwhelming for teams just to coordinate at that
yeah,
level, to be able to get, not only to get the campaign out, but just to get the consistency through the funnel. And I
yeah.
just see in brands, and in a lot of instances, just all of the stress, all of the urgency, all of the last minute aspect. We all know as marketers, we don't do our best work when we're rushing, right? So it's like, where do you bring
No.
in that strategic layer to go, right, this is what we have to focus on. Let's, I always go back to focus on the 20% that's going to get 80% of the result. It's the same here. And that's why I thought it would be really good to get your perspective. And I think listeners are going to go, wow, that's actually really good input, because that's what we have to sort of be thinking about.
I think it's slightly trickier as well, because the easiest thing to do would be to go, well, let's just restrict ourselves to a couple of channels. Let's just restrict ourselves to, digital, social, radio. I just fully made that up, right? But let's just restrict ourselves to that. That way we're limiting the asset rollout required to, I don't know, 45 assets or something, pretty manageable probably. Except nearly everything you will look at will tell you that the best media strategy is more.
Correct.
More weight, more channels. And
because just because of the consumption, like the amount that we're all consuming now, we can't afford, especially brands of your size, can't afford to take that risk. So it's just when you juggle that, it's like the reality is we have to be across, a multi-channel strategy. And so therefore that the creative aspect runs pivotal now with AI, on the cusp. And, we've been doing some tests just recently in terms of how we can get the leverage through AI for creative execution, for creative resizing. And, the results so far have been pretty mind blowing in that space. So maybe there is a great solution coming, but I think your perspective on that and the way in which you've articulated it for marketers, just to realize how important that piece of the puzzle is. And if you do have something great sitting in the wings, if you do have something that you can leverage, maybe not right through the funnel, but at a certain stage, there's opportunity to do that, especially if you know that it's driven the results, or you've got the runs on the board, so to speak. Awesome.
For sure.
So now when we look at, we've obviously got this creative piece. Now I want to look at really understanding from you, what metrics do you track at each stage of the funnel, and how do you align media to those stages? Because I think, we've got sort of this universal rule of what we track, but I'm really keen to hear what's important to you at each stage and how do you focus on that?
Yeah, I mean, we try and keep it to fewer better. I mean,
Hmm.
there's so much. We're not even an online pure play business. Like we've got, online's a relatively small part of our business if you think about sales, but if you
Hmm.
think about site tests getting booked or hearing tests getting booked, then we are a pretty significant online business. But the easiest thing in the world to do would be to measure everything. And like there are contradictions in it, or if they're not contradictions, there's definitely confusions in it. So we just try and keep it to as fewer measures as possible, and we don't kind of over analyze that element of it. So top of the
Hmm.
funnel is top of mind awareness, although we are making a shift toward adding mental availability to that in the next couple of months. And I think that's
Nice.
going to be look, I think it's going to be fascinating to see what we might learn from that, I guess, evolution of how we consider the absolute top of the funnel.
Hmm.
In the middle for us, we keep it very, very, very simple. Consideration is about consideration to have a sight test, consideration to buy glasses,
Hmm.
same for contact lenses, same for hearing aids. Purely, are you considering us to buy? Are you considering us for basically the care element, which is the test, the test and
And are
the
you
check.
looking at that consideration stage? Are you looking at the traffic, the behavior on site, what they're doing? Like if they're looking at one of those services, like what are they doing here? Okay, they're engaging, they're considering, and then that next stage of intention of like, right now I'm going to take action. Now I'm going to fill my details in. Now I'm going to give you some first party data, so to speak. Is that what you're looking through the consideration stage?
Yeah, and look, this is not going to work for everyone, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're in an FMCG world, the signals that you're going to get for intention to purchase or trial something is going to be much, much harder than
Hmm.
for someone like me who's got an every, let's just call it 2 years. It varies whether it's contact lenses, hearing aids, glasses, whatever. But let's just say every 2 years, someone's in market. So if you're in category, fine, you wear glasses, wear hearing aids, wear
Yep.
contacts, whatever. Every couple of years, longer for hearing aids, you're going to say, oh, yeah, that's right. I need to go and do something about that. So we have this massive amount of time, 100 and something weeks of like zero interest in the category, the brand, the products, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not true for contacts. And then
Sure.
for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, you've got this, oh, right, need to go and get my eyes tested, need to book it in, need to go and get it done, need to choose some frames. Da, 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 da. So,
And it's a bit of a panic, right? Because it's like that kind of comes up and it's like, right, or if you've got your healthcare stuff, you've got
yeah,
this looming deadline that you've got to
yeah,
make
yeah. Health,
happen.
health, health insurance absolutely distorts people's
Yeah,
behavior and makes them, hurry up and do stuff that they were going to do it anyway. It's
sure.
just
Yeah.
creates this
Sense of
deadline and
urgency.
this urgency exactly. But I think you've just we get great intent signals off the back of that. You don't really. I'm sure there are some people who are just love looking at frames and hearing aids, but the
Yeah.
majority of people, it's a bit more functional than that. And so if
Yeah.
you're on our site, you're probably on our site to book something or to buy
Hmm.
something. You're not dreaming of
You're
those
not browsing your,
glasses.
your glasses and
No,
checking them
it's
out
not
in a
the
sort of
same as,
3D format.
no, it's not sneakers or jeans or
Yeah,
cars or houses or I don't know, any other thing that you might buy where there's a lot more emotion associated with it. You're pretty much coming
sure.
to us to have a need met. So we're very lucky in that regard that you get incredible intent signals for any of that element
Yeah,
of the funnel.
nice. No,
And
that's
then right
awesome.
down the bottom, I mean,
Yeah.
in my bit, which is optics, we are completely focused on site test bookings.
Hmm.
That is our number one objective and our number one metric. But of course, after that, if it's going really well, we
Yeah.
seek to understand that by looking at all the other things that we can potentially look at. And if it's not going well, we do the exact same to go and try and find, well, where is it that we're falling over? But we don't get distracted by then suddenly going, oh, we're going to really focus now
Yeah.
on, I don't know, basket size.
Hmm.
Well, no, because it comes after that one. So we
Yeah.
really try and keep it to be the very first one. So
So if you
top of
get that
mind.
number, you know that the rest is going to trickle through. It's
Yeah,
like
and
if
then you
that
can
number, if we lose,
yeah,
yeah.
if we're not getting that, then let's go and diagnose it. Or if we are getting that, let's go and diagnose it. But
Hmm.
TOMA or top of mind, let's see what happens with mental availability for us over the next little while, consideration, and then an activation. For me, it's getting site test booked. And then, of course, all the other stuff after that. So uh, how do you
Yeah.
then align all your media to that? The two main tools we use are MMM, market mix modeling. That
Hmm.
helps us with those bigger picture strategic choices of which channels have had the most effect in the past, meeting a certain, meeting the exact criteria that we had, and then attribution in the short term, which we're just getting better at now to go, okay,
Hmm.
well, on that from that particular site test, where do we think that came from in the last little while? Whether that was online, radio, TV, integrating all that data in. It's not that easy. I know you see the stuff. Oh, it's really easy. You can. It's not. It's
Yeah, and
hard.
that's the part, and I know we're going to touch on attribution, but I
Mm.
do think it's important for us all to acknowledge that it isn't something simple, and you really have to, we always say to each business, you really have to define what it means for you and set up, we'll empower you, we'll give you the frameworks and the methodologies,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
at the end of the day, each business really needs to decide, how are we going to attribute this? How are we going to measure this? And how are we going to provide a contribution of channels to say, okay, well, that was actually the ideal media mix to achieve this outcome. And so we've done that with our omni-channel
for sure.
framework, is just to go, right, here's the framework and here's the methodology, but now let's focus this and tailor this to each business, because it fundamentally has to be a business decision that you make to say, right, this is the approach we're going to take.
Yeah, and there's always the context. The danger I think happens here is that you get super focused on the advertising or the communications element of what we're doing, and you're trying to attribute that back to this business result that's happened, and that's completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't, I definitely can't, and I'd encourage any agency people listening to this to keep this in mind as well, is you can't forget the fact that there is a broader context going on, and even we lose sight of that sometimes, and it takes a group of us to sit down and go, oh yeah, but didn't we have a clinical conference that week, and like 40% of our optom, I'm making the numbers up, but
Yeah.
a huge number of our optoms were actually not in clinic for 2 or 3 days. Oh yeah, that did happen. Which would have meant it would have been harder to get an appointment, which would have meant, and you go, okay, so not sure it was the radio then.
Yeah.
It might have
And
been
that's,
something
it
else.
could have been, well, we'd love to say it was
Yeah.
that big radio campaign impact, but if we look at that, and I think that's the whole, we've always have to look at it, and we have to hold ourselves accountable to this in every moment, is the qualitative and the quantitative input, right? So, and without that qualitative input from everybody around the room to look at those factors, actually there were 3 other things happening, or this one moment, could have had an impact, right? Let's dive deep into that and to see what during that period happened. Now that's when you can start to get that single view to go, okay, with these multiple variables at play, this is what we can draw confidence in. And I think that's where, when you've got the feedback I've been getting, is just the overwhelming amount of data that is being provided, but with no meaning. So it's not really about the amount of data that you have, it's about the quality of that, and then the interpretation of that to better go draw reasonable conclusions to go, okay, that's actually going to help push us forward.
Yeah, and I don't look. I did warn you at the start. There's a very good chance I'll run off on tangents.
I'll keep you aligned. Don't worry.
And this could be happening right now.
Off you go.
This is where I get a bit concerned when we have like channel specialists, because that's great. You need that technical expertise, or you need that deep knowledge of how something works, particularly in digital. But if you're a specialist, my experience is that you can get prone to a really blinkered view that this channel is the thing that's doing everything. The best specialists in channels are the ones who also spend almost the same amount of time understanding all the other channels that are happening at the same time, and not biasing toward theirs as being first, best, whatever, but recognizing that it is one part of the machine. And it's definitely happens more at the lower end of the funnel. Like if I took search, for example, it's really easy to think that it does everything, but the analogy that we talk about, or that I talk about, is like, that sort of thing. Search is like the harvester. But if you haven't grown the wheat in the first place, well, there's not going to be any grain. Like
correct.
You can drive that harvester till like forever.
Yeah.
But
you could be showing up as much as you want, but if it's not there, and if that desire is not there, there's not going to be any traction.
It's just not going to happen. The hopper will be empty regardless of what you do. So you've got to do them both. So I think you've got to be really careful. Definitely have specialists, but specialists needs to recognize that they are a player in a broader team that's happening, for sure. So
correct. There's no one magic bullet that's sitting there going, okay,
better.
that's the one, that's the conversions that we're getting. And 100%. It has to be the contribution of those of channels. And I think if you get that at that business level, that strategic level to say, okay, we all agree that this is going to be the contribution, and then that is divvied up, so to speak, accordingly. Now you can start to see those combinations that are working really well together. And I
Yeah,
think
for
that's where
sure.
some of those major breakthroughs go, is like, okay, well, actually we need these, let's just take ATL. We need these key ATL drivers, but actually when we get into the mid of the funnel, these are the sort of the 3 or 4 combinations that are outperforming the others. And then that's when you can draw, not necessarily that you exclude the others, but you're able to draw a higher weighting, which I like. So no,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's an awesome awesome advice. So if we now look at this whole friction piece, so where have you seen friction in the customer journey? And how has Specsavers removed it to boost performance? And I'll give you, I always talk about, the sales process and the steps that someone has to go through to buy from you. And at each stage, there's an opportunity to increase that. And the little 1% improvements can actually lead to significant gains in conversion. So where have those moments been for you? And where have you maybe just gone, okay, wow, that was, either a minor or a significant breakthrough for us?
Yeah, that sort of like CRO on the website is
Yeah.
just like it's constant. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's almost at that incremental improvement stage where I
Yeah.
don't think there's any one thing anymore. But there's all I don't even have the rule.
Yeah.
But the stat off the top. But the less clicks, the better. Um, we've got to balance that though as a healthcare business with kind of like the need to capture certain amounts of quite sensitive information, whether that's Medicare, whether that's private health
Mm-hmm.
insurance. There's all sorts of things that we just have to capture that you can't skip through. So you do everything possible to pre-populate to make it as simple as possible. That's
Yeah.
to get rid of like, we assume friction's bad. Sure, sometimes it is, a lot of the times it is, but it's not always bad. But to get rid of the negative ones, you try and
Yeah.
make it as seamless as possible. You try and not let that division between the physical store and our website, which are, each store doesn't have its own website. It's the website
The
serves each of the
website. Yeah.
stores. Yeah. And so making that seamless, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
mobile, whether it's desktop, whether it's walking in, ringing us up, whatever, that is the really tricky bit to get right because the customer's expectation is Specsavers is Specsavers is Specsavers. I don't really discern massively whether the
Yeah.
phone should be the same as like you've just got to make that as seamless as possible. It doesn't have to be the same, it
Yeah.
just needs to be seamless. And then some customers will just don't care and others will be
Really
super important and they'd love
super
to have an
upset about it.
account and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's very hard to have a one size fits all. It's very hard to satisfy absolutely everyone. So I think you just do the best you can to make it as common sense, logically seamless as possible, knowing that at at the end of our journey, that person's going to be buying glasses and this, okay, if they've converted, but they're buying
Yeah.
glasses and the step before that, they're in a test room. And it's to make that as logical as possible. But then there's also positive frictions that, have a huge and very, really long lasting impact for us. So like the test room is where our optometrists and our audiologists are able to demonstrate their expertise,
Mm-hmm.
show their care, um, help someone see or hear better, and sometimes even detect, you know, a condition that could be threatening their sight or even worse. So
Yep.
that to me, some people say, oh, we should make that as short as possible because, higher efficiency if you could do a 5-minute test or a 2-minute test. But if someone feels cared for and
Correct.
got the glasses that they needed
Mm-hmm.
or the hearing aid that they needed and felt like we'd listened to them and that the product being dispensed to them fit their lifestyle, fit their budget, fit their everything, we get really, really
Yeah.
good NPS, episodal NPS scores from those people. We get really, really good return rates.
The referrals, like the people, hey, you got to go to
Yeah,
Specsavers kind of thing. And I think there's a good little segue there because what especially in your space where you've got the retailer, you've got retailers, but you've also got the website, you've got these locations. How do you really make sure that that experience is as consistent and seamless through both offline and online so that they do have a consistent, is there any sort of specific strategies that you focus on, any specific principles that you focus on to go, okay, if we're going to create this consumer experience for our Specsavers prospects and customers? How
Yeah.
are we going to make sure that the two worlds marry up and complement each other in a way where I feel like I'm having the same experience with the same company, whether I'm on the website or whether I'm in a retail store?
Yeah. So never ending. And again,
Yeah.
like people are different, but you're trying to make it as consistent as you can. So if someone wants to browse glasses, some people will be really happy doing that online and using a virtual try-on, perfectly
Hmm.
fine. Other people will want to feel the physical product
Yeah.
on their face, so they'll want to go into store. So I think you just have to make as available as possible as much of what you do as you realistically can. And like
Hmm.
no one can do absolutely everyone in a tailored way for absolutely everyone. That's just
Hmm.
not going to be a reality. But you've got to find a way where the store makes as much sense as possible for what it is that we're trying to do, which is
Hmm.
care for the sight and hearing for as many people as possible. And then, that includes having glasses and contact lenses and hearing aids that they can buy. And then online replicating that as best you can, recognizing that most people are going online to book an appointment,
Yeah. They
maybe
want to get
find
it
out a bit
done.
more
They want to get, yeah.
information.
Hmm.
Hence why if you go to our website, you'll see a book an appointment button on every single
Yep.
page, because
Front and center. Yeah.
that's what people are there for. So
But that's the
why
whole thing is
make
like, give them what they want. Like they're
yeah
there
why
for something, give them what they want
why
because
make
you
them
know,
navigate?
yeah,
Yeah,
don't make it hard. Don't make it hard. No,
just
that's awesome. Now, the next question I've got for you is when measurement isn't perfect, how do you balance the intuition with the planning your media mix?
or plan.
Because it's all good when it's going well, right? But when it's when the measurement isn't perfect, or there's several conversations, or maybe several different opinions, how do you how do you balance the data and intuition?
Yeah, so no measurement's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't think anything is 100% perfect. I think the closest we would have, and anyone
Hmm.
at a brand would have, is their own 1P that
Yeah.
they can look at themselves, where you get the absolute volume of transactions or whatever it
Hmm.
is that you're measuring, and the absolute volume of sales and baskets and all that other
Yeah.
stuff that, depending who you are, you'll measure it and talk about it in
Hmm.
different ways. That, I would say, the measurement of that is probably going to be perfect. The interpretation of that, well, that could be entirely different depending on where you're coming from, which, at least if you start from a fact base, awesome. When you're talking about that, though, in media, like the media, it's pretty logical, right? They're
Yeah.
going to have a vested interest in their channel, their platform, their whatever
Hmm.
being the thing that they want us to buy first. So
Yeah.
you're
Or that's
already
driving the
in
result, or whatever it might be.
bias town. So
Yeah.
I think
So how do you map through that? So as a as a CMO, as a
MMM.
marketer, yep. Hmm.
So you've got MMM, and as I said before, we're like doing more and more with attribution.
Yep.
You've got to listen to your own data signals wherever you can, and of course,
Hmm.
then intuition has to be a part of it. Like if you're just going to rely on, like, I guess what we're saying when we're saying data and we say
Yep.
media, the things we think about are reach, impressions,
Yeah.
clicks, and really
Viewability. Yeah. Yeah.
hard stuff like that.
Hmm.
Well, there's other data as well, which is no different. And like,
Yep.
if I sort of sidestep for a sec, most people will hopefully be familiar with our Welcome to Airport campaign that we've done, where we've, in Sydney
Brilliant.
was,
Love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you haven't, just look it up. You'll find it. But we were basically just um, playfully welcoming
Yep.
people to the wrong city because they should have gone to Specsavers,
Hmm.
which is fine, right? So the
Yeah.
data there was people are flying to this city, and there are outdoor panels that we can buy in those airports to say that thing. That was the data we used in that. That is that intuition? Is that data? I don't really
It's just
know.
no.
But
I think there's a lot of
radio,
good creativity.
yeah, radio
Mm.
wouldn't have done the same thing, but it
Hmm.
probably would have had higher reach.
Yeah.
So you've
But
got to
they're
bring.
moments too, right? That what you created there was a moment for somebody to walk off a plane, go second guess themselves, like, hang on a second, I'm sure I landed in the right spot with a bit of
Exactly.
humor. That the recall from that, is I think where you're going to get the value.
But planning that
Yeah.
media mix was, it is
Mm.
100% out of home, 100% in and very, very close to airports,
Yeah.
only on outbound from airport panels, the end.
That
Like
end. Yeah.
that was it. That was the end. There was nothing else even though the temptation is, oh, we should amplify this on social.
No.
No,
Yeah.
like
Just keep
discipline.
it. Yeah. Keep it
Yes,
simple. Hmm.
discipline is what will be the beauty of this thing. Discipline
Hmm.
is what will make it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll dilute it by doing more. Like you just, you know, there's a certain amount, and then after that, there is too much of a good thing. And that is definitely true in this. And getting we talk about the stage and the stage being the media and the star being the message.
Yep.
The star was the message, and the stage could be super small, which is exactly what it was. It did not need to be big at all, because the idea was wasn't nothing to do with the media. Obviously, it was completely in that context and that context only. But I think it's a perfect example of where data and intuition. I don't think you go, oh, this is only data, this is only intuition. You still have to interpret all of your data, even if it's search. You can't just take it all on face value, partly because there's bias. And I'm not being critical of a media vendor. Their job is to sell
It's the outcome.
clicks, pages, panels.
For that particular publisher or for
100%.
that particular,
That's their job. And they should be taking that and bringing that to us or whoever with the reason why this makes sense for me based on what they know about me and what they know about them. Perfect. My job is to take or our job with our agencies and everyone is to take all of that and interpret that alongside what has happened for us in the sort of more distant past, MMM, and the more recent past in attribution, and then go, yeah, that is working. Or we did see there might have been more, there might have been more headroom in that had we have given it more of a go. So I think you're forever having to plan your media mix based on intuition and on data. And if you only do it on data, what would you ever do with a new channel? You'd never touch it because it would have none. You just go,
that's
okay,
exactly
well,
right.
no,
Too much risk,
wait.
no information, not doing it.
Not doing it. And that could be fine. I would not do that. I think if you've got experience and it's not very often.
You have to stretch. It's the whole, like, even if you just look in life, like, you've got to step outside your comfort zones. It's the same thing, when you're buying media, when you're doing whatever you're doing in this space, is you have to be willing to go and try and test. And now with the world we live in, we can be really targeted, really effective of the way in which we do those tests. And I think that this is just a really clear, strong example of those two working together. And then to your point, which I think is really, for listeners especially, the discipline to just execute what needs to be executed and no more. So bring us a few more of those, because they're brilliant, because that is I think there's a bit of magic in there of that. You can kind of go, oh, we could do this and we could do this and we could do this. No, just focus on the most important part that's going to get the greatest result. And that's what you guys did. And I'm sure you would have, had to even look at things like not keeping it in a market too long to not let it die off, because you've got to keep that, oh, actually that was hilarious, not, oh, that's still going.
Yeah, no. Well, we did. It ended up running for a while, but again, that's where you just go and like, some of us probably travel a lot, and we're not really the people we're talking about. I mean, of course, if anyone listening wants to go into one of our stores, please do. That would be amazing. But most people don't travel that often, and they don't go to airports that often, and so roughly 4 or 5 months, I think we ran it for.
Nice.
From what we, from the information we could get and the data that we could get on that should get us more or less the maximum audience we're realistically going to get. Of course, if we left it running and running and running, we would have got all that long tail of people, but we also would have got, to your absolutely correct point, lots more people going, oh, is this still running? And I'm a big fan of just repeating the same joke over and over. I think that's brilliant, but not probably the best thing to do when you're a brand.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and that's the point of, like, when you've got, like what you're saying at the beginning, like, we've got this overarching should have gone to Specsavers epic campaign that just works like absolute gold idea that works like gold. But then, what, in the mid funnel and that kind of thing, when we are doing variations or executions of that, it does make sense to keep that variety. So I think there's a really nice balance to your point. Now, when we look at this whole piece around using automation, data, or now even AI to scale media buying and outcomes, how are you starting to use? I mean, let's just say, how are you starting to use AI in the day-to-day execution?
Geez, no one ever talks about AI. This is
I know.
This is new.
I know.
This is new and different.
What? Like what? What is this thing?
I think if you're buying any media, whether you know it or not, you are 100% benefiting from some degree of machine learning or AI that is going into it, especially if you're buying digital. Or not especially, 100% if you're buying digital media. That is definitely happening. We're probably more focused at the automation end. So I think I said earlier, like a line we like is the best media strategy is more, more channels. That just also means more assets. And, deadlines are different, specifications are different, file types are different. So having a way of just speeding up that rollout time from weeks and weeks and weeks into, I mean, you're trying to compress that as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that would be the majority of where it is, but it's machine learning or AI is in attribution, it's in MMM, it is in creative asset resizing, it's in anything that you're trying to automate or call it programmatic automation, programmatic, whatever, same
Yeah.
difference really. Anywhere where you're trying to just go, if these conditions are met, this is what I want. You should probably be looking to try and automate that through some sort of machine learning element.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the businesses now that have some of those really strong foundations set up in their workflows, in their consumer journeys, now have a very unique opportunity to leverage, the AI agents, AI automation to go, okay, well, actually, we've been managing this on a manual basis, and it's a bit of a mundane task or a mundane process. Let's leverage this future technology coming through, make that magic happen, and then that'll allow us to focus on our highest and best use. And I think the
Yeah,
brands that's similar to you guys, you know your consumer funnel, you know the steps in the sales process, you know what's working and what's not. You've got those workflows in place. Now you can really start to tap into the technology to amplify that experience.
yeah. I think with brief writing as well for us,
Oh, yeah.
it's a really helpful thing. And I'm not talking about using like a Gen AI to write it for
hmm
you, but when sometimes you've just got an image in your mind, particularly if it is a really specific thing that you're talking about, you can much more quickly and much more easily get that, that picture paints 1,000 words kind of thing. You
Yeah.
can get a little bit of visual stim yourself into your
Oh, I say to
agency.
the team, like, I'm not a designer, like, and that's why I can't, often give them that level of feedback on their designs. But when I now can put a brief together and I can take my vision and I can build that into an image in which I can, just sort of type and say, okay, this is what I want to see.
Yeah.
My briefs just generally have got so much better just using that technology because of that exact reason.
But don't become
Because
prescriptive, Aleisha. You can't do that. I'm very very
you've got to be
mindful.
careful,
And
right?
we don't
You've got to
go, make me this.
Yeah, no, you got to be careful. You got to
That's
say sort of like, this is the inspiration behind what I'm thinking. But you're right. You have to be, and it's a great point. You have to be so careful not to be either prescriptive or directive, because the creativity and the path and the wandering that they need to go down to bring the magic there, that still matters.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that. So look, what advice do you have for CMOs or marketing managers trying to make media and creative work harder together? What would you sort of say, if you had a CMO or a marketer walk in today? What would you say?
It's not it's it's amazing when it all comes seamlessly together, like the
Yeah.
airport stuff we were just talking about. But
Yeah.
I think I don't think anyone wouldn't already know this. You've got to know your own business and what's driving your results in order to be able to answer that correctly and appropriately. But yeah, I think recognizing stage and star,
Mhm.
that's language that we use that I think really helps frame that conversation up as well. And sometimes it is all about the stage. Like if I'm in activation and I'm trying to get as many people as possible to book a site test in a pretty short amount of time, yes, the star matters, but it's the star's just about being really clear and really
Mm.
compelling and tapping into people who are in market, in category right now, ready to shop. Which, as I said, for us is every couple of years for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, I've got a pretty narrow window. So, in order to maximize that, it is about knowing that I need to have that stage as wide as possible, as many channels as I can, as many form. And it gets, for anyone who's on our side or the agency side, that gets really expensive really quickly. So, the need to do that balanced with your budget can be challenging. And then you go to the other end, like the airport out of home we're talking about. That was all about the star, and I guess the stage then was this really narrow little pedestal instead, and so we just kept it small because the star was huge. So I think it's just getting. It's all about knowing what you're trying to
Mhm.
achieve. So we were trying to achieve a bit of fame and a bit of mental availability, and just to continue the should have idea
Mhm.
in a new execution that didn't cost the earth. And they were all the things that we thought we could do off the back of having a video asset that was set in an airport, which was actually the original genesis for it.
Mhm.
And that came about because that was done right as people were starting to re-travel again off the back of COVID. So that was one of our ones that was a bit more contextual. And we were like, well, how can we amplify this? Do you do it literally by just taking scenes out of the video, or I know you wouldn't do it matching luggage style like that, but taking
Yeah.
that sort of I've misseen something at the airport, and we're like, well, yeah, or we could go,
Yeah.
you just didn't even go to the right one.
Correct. And
And
also we're
so we
all a
just,
bit yeah, we're
yeah,
all a
so
bit, I kind of like the idea of going out at it after COVID as well, because we were all a bit clunky. Like, I remember my
yeah,
first trip after
fun.
COVID, it was like, hang on, what? Like, when do I need a passport? It felt a bit awkward
Yeah,
because
why
we
am
were
I
all
taking
just,
my shoes off?
yeah,
Like, what
that's
is
exactly
happening?
right. Like,
Why are you
security,
doing this?
what's that? Like, we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
just all a bit out of shape in that respect of how to actually travel well. So yeah, I didn't know that it came off the bat, because that's just
Yeah, it came off
another,
the back of that, and then we were like, well, how can we play with that? And the team in the UK did all kinds of quite fun things as well. And we were like,
yeah,
okay, we'll take inspiration from that. I think we can play with it as well. And our angle was slightly different, but I think that's the beauty of an idea like a should have,
yeah,
that you can just then go and execute it in a bunch of different ways.
yeah,
And
absolutely. No,
and
that's
that's how you
awesome.
do it. But I think
Yeah,
stage and star get them right. For
yeah,
us, well, I think for most people, the bottom of the funnel would be about making the stage as wide as possible, as
hmm,
many channels as you can, as much reach as you can, understanding your purchase journey and how long people are in market for and all that sort of stuff, and optimizing to that. And then at the other end, I think you're trying to make your star as big as possible. And if you are at the that awareness end, a channel or two with a great idea, I think is,
yeah,
for us, it's a better way to go. A lot of our should haves are definitely video. So,
yeah,
of course, we
yeah,
buy a lot of video, but not a
yeah.
lot of other things,
Hmm.
or it's out of home or it's social. They tend to be, you know, a format. So whether that's a
Yeah.
static or whether that's, a slight moving poster
Hmm.
or it's just some words, it tends to be one idea that really only lends itself to a channel or,
Yeah.
a type of execution, and that's it. So I think just always being crystal on what your goal is, because it is easy to, especially at the top of the funnel, more maybe isn't always more, and
Yeah.
heaps of channels. Is the idea staying pure? Is that creative execution staying pure, or are we starting to, have to just snip into it in probably the wrong places to make it fit, into
Hmm.
video or into just audio or into static or whatever? Maybe we are.
Yeah.
Maybe not. The
Yeah.
idea could. This is our job. Our job is to interpret that and go, well, yeah, I think that this idea is universal,
Hmm.
works in every channel for everyone every time. Brilliant. I would love to have an idea like that.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah.
Haven't had one yet.
Yeah, that's
I'm
it. I
starting to run
think,
out of time.
yeah, that's the thing. I think that's a pretty ambitious, ambitious goal to have. But I think
It's
to
just
what I
discipline.
like, yeah, exactly. And what I like,
It's
yeah,
just discipline and be
yeah,
real. Like
yeah,
it is easy to get carried away, and we all do it. You get
yeah.
carried away.
Oh, for sure.
You
Yeah,
get enthusiastic, and you go, you know
yeah.
what? I really like this. Let's make it as big as possible. And you can sometimes mistake, big for more. Big should just be make that idea bigger,
Hmm.
not the stage, or
Breathe.
make
Let it have
make
its own space.
make the
And
stage
that's,
bigger. Yeah.
I think the key point and the key takeaway there is, when you look at the should have campaign and you know that that's pivotal around video, then you can kind of really underpin. I mean, yes, there's been other executions of it, but you can sort of go, okay, well, if that's our hero and then we have our other amplification of channels in and around that, you do have a strategic vision there to go, okay, actually, we don't have to just go everywhere. We can be, yes, we need to be on multi-channel for sure, but we have got that driving force of this is really where it's executed best. And I think that taking in, and I like the syntax of the star and stage, because it just brings everybody together to be,
Oh,
okay, what do we,
we didn't invent that. We've definitely borrowed that.
I like it.
That
Yeah.
is not new. It's
Yeah.
resonated well for us,
Well
and
with the
it it,
team.
it
Yeah.
it helps explain it, and we all get it really quickly and
Yeah.
easily. So yeah,
Which is what you need, right? Begin
yeah,
with the end in
exactly.
mind. Okay, finally, Shaun, what's one belief or approach that's helped you deliver consistent performance, even in unpredictable media environments? And I think we're in a more unpredictable environment than ever before, but I
We've
would love to
always
get
said that.
love to get your perspective on this.
I Look, I think it is discipline as much
Yeah.
as you want to have creativity, and that is a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Creativity comes from having that discipline of knowing what it is
Yeah.
that you're doing. So how it looks at the bottom of the funnel, where for us it's all about getting site tests booked, is very different to how it looks where we're trying to increase mental availability, is
Hmm.
very different to how it looks when we're trying to grow consideration. So stay disciplined to the idea that to the idea if you're at the top, or certainly to the objective that you're trying to achieve, knowing what it's actually doing. So I know what the benefit of awareness is for us, or top of mind awareness or mental availability is, because the difference that happens when someone puts the word into a query, Specsavers into a query versus a generic term versus anything else, is massive. So
Hmm.
top of mind awareness is
Got
huge,
that.
and
Hmm.
being that brand that people think of when that happens is a massive head start. Like we just
Yeah.
had the stall gift. you're like being the fastest person and you're getting to start off of 10 meters. Brilliant. I'm
Brilliant.
almost certainly going to win. In consideration, it is knowing that the audience of people who are almost there but not quite there, and how you're trying to tip them over the edge. And then it comes down to all the other things that we do that's not should have, it's not a sight test.
Hmm.
It's potentially the work with Fred Hollow's foundation. It's potentially that we include an OCT, which is a much more advanced eye scan with everyone at no, like it just doesn't, it's one of the other things that we need to do. So again,
Hmm.
it's just being disciplined to be in this area. This is what we're going to talk
Yeah.
about. And down in activation, we're talking about the things that people are going to care about right then and there in that transaction.
In
Will
that
their
moment.
health insurance card make a difference? Yes or no? Um, have you got a decent price for multifocal glasses? Yes or no? Do you have brands I want at a decent price? Yes or
Yeah.
no? That is the information that we're communicating
Yeah.
down at that end. And it is just not trying to shoehorn should have into everything or price into everything or whatever. It is single-minded discipline, whether I'm at the top, the mid, the bottom. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
what do they need in that moment? Like, what do they? Yeah, and that, I think the simplicity of that, and not trying to jam too much down their throat, so to speak, especially at the intention when they just want the appointment, they just want to know
yeah.
what pairs of glasses they can have. That is brilliant advice, because often I do see some of the uh, call it the awareness and consideration messaging filtering through at that intention and conversion stage, when really they just want to have one sentence, one conversation, just get me what I want because I'm ready to go. Let's not impede them in any way from getting that outcome.
Yeah, but let's not pretend it's not a huge temptation, like on a
Oh,
should have
well,
to go
I've been
and
guilty. Yeah, I've been guilty of that in the past. It's like a huge
yeah,
temptation to put it in
yeah,
there because, oh, we'll just reinforce it one more time.
yeah.
We'll just
Just
make
one
it
more time.
consistent through the funnel. But actually, just give me my glasses, or just give me
Yeah,
the deal, or whatever it is.
yeah. Or
I actually think that's
if
a
we put no
brilliant.
gap on the end of this, that'll be fine. It's like, yeah,
No, I think that's a brilliant
it
insight,
won't.
because it's too much. Like, it's like, how can we strip it down and just give them what they need? So I like that. Bottom of the
Yeah.
funnel, less is more.
And we're not
Awesome.
perfect at it. We're forever having to remind ourselves of this, and we regularly don't do this. And and we look back on it and go, how? And that is what we're always trying to do. Like we talk about the infinite game. It's again, I think it was Simon
Simon
Sinek
Sinek,
might
yeah,
have
Simon Sinek. Yep.
popularized that. I think it's not a particularly new concept, but I think the luxury we have, or the benefit we have in being able to talk about that, is being privately owned by a family.
Hmm.
We're not as hung up on quarterly results, annual results. Of course, let's not pretend commercials don't matter. Of course they matter. They're incredibly important, but we can also make decisions for 5 years down the track
Hmm.
and get the investment that we need, whether that's the time or the space or the money
Yep.
to do things, because we recognize that we're not here for the next earnings call, or the next set of results, or the next annual report.
Correct.
We're here to have a sustaining business that, the ethos at the bottom of it, or at the heart of it, is to change lives through better sight and hearing.
Yeah.
So is what we're
There's
trying to
that you're
do.
playing a very
Yeah,
long game, which is
yeah,
what you want in business ideally. Like,
yeah,
it's very easy to win the short game, to win the long game, and to think strategically and ask yourself now in this moment, okay, is this going to help us for the long game? Is this going to help us for our ultimate mission, values, and outcome?
yeah.
I think there's that's a very unique and a definitely most valuable approach to take when it is in that instance able to be controlled in that respect, because
Yeah,
I
but
do think a
that's
lot of other
ours.
businesses are in the short game, and it is a challenging one.
But I think that's also
Mm.
potentially okay. Like that ours is that's
Hmm.
just, it is what it is. That means that we stay true to that.
Yeah.
If what you are is true to needing to drive a short-term result,
Mm.
be true to that. Like
Hmm. Yeah, own it. That's
it's
right.
when
Each to their
it's
own,
when you
right?
start to
Yeah.
pretend, or not pretend, but when you start to behave as if it's not, and it's maybe
Hmm.
purpose-led when it's not really, it's actually
Yeah.
just commercially led. That's when you start to tangle yourself in knots, because
Hmm.
it's really difficult to sort of be single-minded when you're not being single-minded straight off the bat.
Yeah.
And so for us, changing lives through better sight and hearing, that's why we have the pricing we have and the value that we have,
Hmm.
because that gets glasses and hearing aids as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. So
Yeah.
that's how that manifests. It's really simple. How do you do it? By
Yeah.
making them as affordable as possible. How do you then make people want to do it? You make it more accessible mentally, which is less scary. So should have is a bit of fun. It makes it less scary. So it
Yeah.
all just comes together
Hmm.
to help in the broader, objective, which was from the founders to try and change lives through better sight and hearing. Like
Yeah. I love
it's
it.
a
Yeah.
really easy sentence,
Hmm.
but if
But
you're
that's what you
somewhere
need.
else,
You need that simplicity.
but just know what it is, and so
Hmm.
long as it's true, that's fine. Of course, you're always going to have to deliver a commercial result. None of us are sat here. Well, some people might be sat here where that's not a constraint,
Yeah.
but most of us are going to have that constraint.
Hmm.
That's okay. You just need to understand how that actually does sit with the purpose, or just if there isn't a purpose, that can be okay. Just don't pretend. You will tangle yourself in knots.
Hmm. No, look, I think that's really good advice. So, look, this has been fun, Shaun. Thank you. This has been a real cracking episode. I think you've just given us a masterclass in staying true to what works and backing it with the data as well. So, from the power of consistent creative platform to full funnel measurement and omni-channel decision making, I think this conversation was packed with real world insights that you can apply to your next campaign. So thank you, Shaun, for taking the time to be with us today. It's been so much fun chatting to you, and just I'm super grateful for you being so open and sharing these insights with us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Aleisha. It was fun to be here.
Okay, if you got value from this episode, hit subscribe to the Black Box of Media and leave a review. It helps more marketers like you unlock the hidden strategies behind high performance media. Let's keep the conversation going. If today's episode sparked new ideas, challenged the way you think about media, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a message on LinkedIn and share your biggest takeaway. So until next time, keep pushing boundaries, keep testing, and more importantly, keep making media work harder for your business. See you in the next episode.